Hello and welcome to Adobe Live here on Behance. My name is Aaron Nace of Learn.com, and joining to me today is, I'm so excited about this, commercial photographer Katelin Kinney. Her work is inspirational to say the least. Her use of colors is out of this world. Looking at her images just like strikes joy in my heart, like serious Marie Kondo vibes. It's given me joy. She's an absolute fantastic photographer, and I'm so excited to have her here. We just learned before the broadcast that we've actually known each other online for many, many years. So that's so fantastic. Katelin, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I've been following you for over 15 years, so glad to be here.
I'm glad we're here. And we were just talking about, seems like a lot of time has passed, but we are still super positive and happy to be in this amazing industry, and
Definitely.
happy for everyone joining us here on the chat. So if you guys are joining us on YouTube, fantastic. We love you. Hit that subscribe button. You'll get more free live videos from Behance. If you are on Behance, there's a chat segment on the right-hand side. We'd love to chat with you. Apruva says, hey, hello, everyone. Robert, Anki, there we go. General Kenobi, what's up? Steve, Festus, Sam Peterson, Paco's in the chat, Frank's in the chat. This is so much fun. So we've got an action-filled couple of hours for you, and we're live. The best thing about that is if you have any questions for me, or mostly for Katelin, let them know in the chat. I'll be monitoring throughout the broadcast, and we will let her know. Now, before we get started, just a quick reminder, if you guys haven't checked out the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenges, with Wade Acuff, start those off every day, 9 a.m. Pacific. It's just a great way to get your mind back in the creative flow. And it's super cool to be working along with amazing artists as well. So you can tune that in and learn and start off with a new prompt every single day. Well, I am super excited. Katelin, passing it back to you. Can you tell us a little bit about what we are going to be learning today?
Yeah, so I'm going to be doing a composite photo that's really based around products. You can see my website here. I really focus mainly on advertising. So I like working with different brands, different products, but I also like bringing in the pop of color and the surreal aspect to it. Yeah, anything that has to do with photo compositing kind of gets my heart beating. So I love bringing different elements together that aren't actually naturally there in camera, and then creating kind of a little world with it. This would be a good example of something similar that we'll be doing today. But this time I'm going to be working with EOS chapsticks instead of Olay or something like that. So should be pretty fun. Here's like a little before and after to kind of give you a taste of the stuff we're going to be doing today.
Amazing. And I gotta say, to start with, the prop styling and all of that image you were just showing with the flowers, kind of coming around, and that, how does that sort of thing come about? Like the flowers kind of match the color of the product. Is that
so ironically they didn't.
Oh, yeah, they did not.
No. So I knew that I wanted to shoot the Olay product. That was the beginning of it in my head. And then conceptually, I always try to think of the story behind the brand and the product. So what does this product try to sell? It tries to sell softness, it tries to sell hydration, and it's a night cream. So how do I bring all those elements together conceptually? Let's make it a night scene. How do I bring the softness in? Let's use flower petals. And then hydration, let's have a little lake or some sort of water going on. And then nighttime, I figured, well, how do I do nighttime besides just a starry sky? Let's make the flowers into a moon that's cradling. So all this is going on in my brain. It's just brainstorming pretty much. And then I just ran to Kroger right next to me, got some flowers. The only ones available were red and pink. And then I used a foam board, cut it into a moon. And then I just pinned all of the flowers into like this little bouquet stuck onto the moon and shot that, then color corrected. So I really do like working with my hands and creating props, which you'll see in the stuff we're doing today. I created a pretty gnarly prop for this that I'm pretty excited about.
That is so cool. I'm so glad I asked, because the story behind this is kind of gives me like a window into your creative process, how you work, and also how you were tying like concepts of the product to to the shoot, how you style it, like what you're actually creating.
Definitely.
And the results are unique and gorgeous, and like knowing the story behind it is even more special.
Thanks.
I'm excited for today. This is so cool. Everyone in the chat's loving it as well.
Yep. So just let me know if we're ready to hop in and I'll get going.
Cool. We are definitely ready. Yeah.
All right. So gonna bring you over here real quick. Okay. EOS chapsticks, in case anyone doesn't know, they're chapsticks that are in like a cute little ball shape. And I was thinking hydration again, obviously. So let me pull up what I created for a prop for this shoot. And it's this little octopus tentacle that I sculpted with clay. So at first, when I look at it, I'm like, it's interesting. It's cool. It's definitely not to a polished level of being ready for advertising, but that's going to be where compositing comes in and the magic of Photoshop that we all love. So I had the idea of taking these little chapstick balls and kind of having them stuck in these suckers. So essentially, we're going to be compositing this octopus tentacle into an ocean scene where it's half above the water, half under the water. And these little chapstick products are going to be stuck in the little suckers. So that's what we're doing.
What? That is so cool.
All right. So let's just dig right in. First of all, I'm going to crop this just a little bit, kind of bring it more central to the scene. So what I would normally do is have a pen tool and do a path outline, but I know today is going to take a little long, so I do already have that process done. However, if you haven't used the pen tool before, I'm going to be repeating that process on a slightly smaller object. So not missing anything, we're just saving a little bit of time. So here's the path over here that I created. I can select it if you guys want to see. So you can see the little dancing ants around here. I basically just used a pen tool to trace it out. Had the selection and then made a layer mask. So we have this layer over here. I can turn off the background layer. I personally always keep the background layer. Like I never touch it. I just turn it off. And I know that it's there if I ever need to go backwards any steps, and I just have it preserved. So that's just my process personally.
Good call. All right. I like that.
Yeah. And I never want to destroy pixels that I know I can't get back. That's just, it would take forever. So whenever I have this tentacle, for me, I like to build up the scene from the back forward. So the first thing I want to do is kind of drop in like an ocean scene. So I have a few stock photos that I've gone through. Also, if anyone in the chat knows what's going on with my computer, please let me know, because this is driving me crazy. Normally, when I click the space button, it pops up into like a full preview instead of this little expanded thumbnail. And suddenly in the last like week, it stopped doing that. So if anybody has the answer, please, for goodness sakes, tell me, because that saves a lot of time for me to just press that space bar and like be able to zoom in real quick and see files.
Yeah, I'm getting the same thing, I'm just looking at my computer too, and I'm like, wait, what's going on?
Yeah, no idea when that started happening, but it's driving me absolutely bonkers. I assumed it was something that I did, but who knows? Okay, so I do like this photo. It may end up being the one that I choose. I had a couple other ones in here. Oh, you know what? I like this one. Yeah, this is the one that I prefer because I like all the bubbles. And if a tentacle is coming up, there's going to be a lot of movement, and bubbles underneath the water definitely create that realistic movement. So I like this so far for just a plain background for it. Now, something that I do want to do is extend this octopus tentacle. As far as the whole framing goes, I think I like where the top is. In advertising, you definitely want to have some negative space. You want to have some like breathing room around it, because you never know whenever they're like, oh, we need to crop in for this, or, we need to add some text over here. So I definitely want to leave some breathing room. As far as the tentacle itself, I think I kind of want to maybe use warp, transform warp, and kind of just pull the bottom down a little bit. I don't want to do too much because I don't like stretching pixels a whole lot. I do as much as I can get away with before it starts to feel irresponsible, pretty much.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's okay that it doesn't reach all the way to the bottom, because I plan on darkening this whole thing on the bottom because I kind of like the ominous aspect of it. Like it's, you know, it's the deep ocean. We have no idea where it's coming from. Okay. All right. So next thing that I would do is probably let's focus on like this front line. And you know what? Now that I look at this, I kind of don't like how high the ocean part is. Let me pull that down a little. I like this drip right here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a nice little juicy detail. So I think I want to keep that showing above just to have a little bit more drama going on.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Plus we're going, it kind of feels almost like a, you know, the 3/4 rule where you have like a bottom third, or the third rule of thirds. Yeah. The rule of thirds where you have like the bottom third. I know I'm cheating a little bit because it's a little bit higher than a third, but I think I like that balance a little bit better. Okay. So let's address this like front line of the ocean. So I have some other ocean things in here. There's a sky. Okay. So this shot, something that I like to do is I like to keep my own basically library of stock photos. So this was just a shot I did in a pool. I was really liking the lighting and like the line of it, how it was very out of focus and blurred. So from my own little stock photos, I'm going to pull this. I'm going to lower the opacity just so I can kind of see behind what we have going on, because I think I'd like to also shape this front wave a little bit. I don't want it to just be straight, because this whole thing is movement. Okay. Like it's an action shot. There's movement, there's drama. So instead of it just being this straight, like bloop line like this, let's warp it a little bit. I do like warp quite a bit. Let's actually delete this layer mask. We don't need that right now. Okay. And then also for people who aren't familiar with smart objects, I love to use smart objects. That allows me to, you know, like scale it down as far as I want. And then if I'm like, ooh, I don't really want it to be that small, pull it back up. I've not lost any pixel data whatsoever because it's all reserved in that smart object. So smart object, smart object, smart object. They are your best friend whenever you're compositing, because I like to go back and forth a lot. This is not something that it's not a recipe. I do a lot of guessing back and forth to kind of get the placement of what I want. So smart objects are very important to kind of preserve those pixels so I can go back and forth. Kind of like the idea of it being like a swoosh, like a big splash up on the right side. Also, that will help with the balance too, because we're kind of mimicking this tentacle down here, mimicking the shape of the line. So I always like to think about the lines and think about the shape and the movement and how we're going to mimic things and kind of mirror things, because the human eye really likes to have mirror and symmetry. And balance.
Definitely. Sure. That's so cool. I like that you're explaining like your thought process also while you're going through it.
Well, welcome to my brain.
Welcome to my brain.
Okay, so now that I think I have probably the shape that I want, and again, I can go back and change this, especially since it's a smart object. I'm going to do a layer mask on top of that. Have my brush. I'm going to bring softness all the way down, because you see how soft and out of focus this is. That's something very important in compositing. You want to match essentially focal range. So if this front line is very out of focus and very blurry, you do not want that to have a sharp edge at all. You need to match the focus edge of that.
Definitely.
Okay. Definitely going to go back and like finesse this a little bit, but for now, this is kind of how I like to work with compositing, is like I like to get the whole scene kind of out there, make it like, you know, the physical part of it looks correct, and then I go back in and finesse all of the rough lines and things that are like a little need some advertising polish to them, essentially.
Definitely.
All right. General line looks pretty good. I think this left side is just a little bit low, so I'm going to go back in and warp it again. Transform, warp. I'm gonna pull this up just a teeny bit. And you'll see that like my layer mask is not moving with it, which that's because I unlinked it. So let me link it again and then just kind of fix that layer mask just a teeny bit. That feels a little bit better. I don't want the tentacle to be like dropping off the edge of the earth there. Okay. So the sharp line of the ocean behind it, let me go ahead and put a layer mask on that and start to blur that a little bit. Again, making it super soft, making it basically hidden. I need to hide that behind the main image here. Over here, I can see an issue popping up where the edge of the image is showing behind the softness of the front line. Easy fix. I can either just pull up the entire ocean some like that. I think that works. I don't think I'm missing because I want to see like, I don't really care too much. I don't think about this detail up here, the sharpness in this photo. Not really. I'm not going to cry if I lose that part. So I think it's all right. So I'm going to go back in, make the layer mask. Okay. All right. For being kind of a rough start, I think it's looking pretty good as far as shapes go. All right, so let's add in a sky. So something else that's extremely important about compositing is matching light sources. So you'll see whenever I start bringing in the chapstick products that I had a lighting setup and I did not move it after I shot the tentacle because I want everything to be matching because that's how it makes it look realistic, like it's actually there. So my lighting, strong light is coming from the back right area over here. There is some fill light coming in front, which is typical for advertising. You want the product to be lit up so it doesn't being totally backlit isn't necessarily the greatest thing for advertising, especially when you're dealing with just the product itself. So anyway, for the sky, I need to match that lighting. So that's a really sharp, hard light from the back right, meaning I'm going to need to have the sun over in this area. Nice. So let me go back into my stock photos. Sky. All right. You know, I could adjust things in camera raw here, but I think I prefer to probably have it in the photo just so I can visually be next to the blue of the ocean and kind of see where I want to go from there with the color. I don't need to, you know, bring back any pixels or data. I'm not missing anything in here. So I'm just going to go ahead and open it as it is.
Cool.
Okay. And the sun is kind of central in this photo, so definitely going to expand it some. And again, I don't like pushing pixels, but I will push it to a level that I think is responsible. And also, the sky is going to be a little bit out of focus anyway, so we don't need to have it to be super, super sharp.
I have a cool workflow thing.
Yeah.
If you're feeling good on time and
oh yeah,
like a little suggestion. So because you brought that in as a smart object. If you double click on the thumbnail for that layer, let's give it a double click on that. It brings you back into camera raw. So if you need to adjust your color temperature or anything like that, you're good to go.
Nice. What? Okay. Let me check something real quick. Yes, cancel all changes for the moment. Huh. Interesting. I feel like I've double clicked that before and it just brought me into like the question of like, do you want to rasterize it? Or no, it opened it up into a new, you know, like a new tab in Photoshop whenever I double clicked it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a setting. So if you go ahead and double click on that again, you're going to see some words on the bottom where it says Adobe RGB 1998, 8-bit, all that. So if you click on that, then there's that open in Photoshop as smart object on the very bottom. Yeah, that's the key, that's the secret. So if that's checked, then you should be able to get back into camera raw, even though in this time it wasn't checked and it still works. So maybe they kind of updated that.
Interesting. Yeah, I know you are just like a wizard with Photoshop. You know all of the little technical things that, yeah, like I said, I've been following you for 15 years, and anytime that somebody's like asking me about making a tutorial or something, I'm like, Flern has already done it, so go check it out.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, I feel the same way. I'm like, Flern's already done it. Too funny.
Okay, I think that feels about right for the placement of the sun. I definitely want to brighten the sky, that's for sure, but as far as the placement goes, I think that feels pretty good.
Yeah, that looks great.
Okay. All right, So there's lots more compositing that I'm going to do, but for the moment, I'm going to start addressing some of these like color and light issues, just because it's bugging my eye. It's bugging my eye, and I wanted to get it looking good. Okay, so for me personally, I know this is weird, but I just really am not a fan of blues that are magenta heavy. It's just a personal taste thing. So I actually like the more cyan turquoise of this front line. So I think I'm going to match the back ocean to the line instead of vice versa. I might bring down the teal just a little bit, but the whole purpose of this, I mean, look at the tentacle. It's not a real, it has sparkles in it. So this whole thing is more of like, like a 90s Lisa Frank reliving my childhood nostalgia thing. So who says the ocean needs to be a realistic color? Okay, so definitely not. So I'm going to, I don't know, there's lots of different things I could choose. I could choose the color balance. I could actually just clip down a color layer on top of it. Let's do selective color and just kind of see. Let me move this little thingy. Okay, so let me go up into the blues because it's very blue heavy. Oh, also I'm going to clip this down. Make sure you clip it down if you only want it to affect that specific layer. So blues, let's bring down magenta. Bring up cyan. Let's bring a little bit of yellow into it. I don't want to lighten it too much. That looks pretty good. And again, I can go back and adjust those colors anytime. So yeah, see, my gut is telling me this might be a little bit too teal and too turquoise, but we're going to leave it as is for now, and we can always go back to it later.
Can change it anytime. We got a question from the chat. They're asking if you're using a mouse or a pen tablet or how you working.
I'm using just a little finger trackpad, actually.
Nice.
So yeah, I have a Wacom tablet, and I do use that when I need to do like super specific, like hair work. That's gonna make it so much quicker. To be honest, I do a lot of my retouching while sitting on the couch. That's just that's where I like to work. So it's kind of hard to have, I don't have like any sort of desk on the couch or anything. So it's kind of hard to have my whole Wacom tablet there. So I've started using the finger trackpad literally out of just habit and necessity of wanting to sit on the couch while I edit. So yeah, finger trackpad, that's it. So, I mean, those other tools can definitely help quite a bit, but all you need is a finger trackpad.
Agreed.
Okay, so I have the color right in the bottom portion. Right for now anyway. So I think I'm going to adjust some of the lighting down here. I definitely want it to be dark. I also want the tentacle to darken up with it. So two options. I could either do a darkening layer, whatever we decide to do that, on top of the ocean and on top of the tentacle, or I could do one that's right above the tentacle and it's going to affect everything below it. That would also affect the sky though. But so this is one thing that I love about Photoshop is that there's tons of different ways to do this. So I'm going to just do one first on the ocean layer. Let's do curves. I really do like curves. I feel like I can get a lot more control over things. Darkening it. I like those bubbles. I definitely don't want to lose those. So I want those to pop. I think that feels good.
Yes. And
then also I probably will want to dodge out not dodge, but I want to paint out a little bit, just a teeny bit of the layer that we just did, because there is a lot of sun coming in. So it would be a little bit lighter towards the top. Also, I don't want to lose the tentacle once it gets under the water. So that means light is going to have to come under the water.
There we go.
Okay. So I'm going to do another layer on top of the tentacle, like what I just did, and clip it down to the tentacle. So darkening the tentacle now. Definitely want to darken. Okay, I'm getting a little too crazy with points. I want to darken the whole thing. So even the lightest lights, I'm going to come over here, darken, pull it down. Okay, and obviously I don't want the entire tentacle to do that. So we're going to mask it out, completely paint it out with black, paint in the white just where I want the darkness.
Yes. Which
would be under the water. Okay, another thing about being underwater is that you lose color, and you lose color quickly. So this bright orange would not really be bright orange if it was that deep underwater already. So I'm going to add a couple different options. I could start to group these because I know that these guys here I want them all to kind of feel flattened and together in the same environment. I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. We might run into some issues later with that, but we'll see. So tentacle, and ocean.
Nice.
Okay, so if I put a blank layer on top of that and I clip it down, create clipping mask. Okay, I'm going to just pick a dark color from the scene, super, super dark. And I have a big, big brush, very soft, and I'm just gonna start painting in at the bottom. Okay. And I don't really want it to be just flat paint. So let's go to the blending mode and see, probably multiply. Multiply might be a little dark. Multiply or overlay. Let's do multiply and then just lower the opacity of it a little bit. Yeah, I like that. You can still see some detail, but it kind of adds some darkness to it.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I'm looking at this, I think I do kind of want to pull that tentacle all the way down because I don't want to warp it anymore. And now that I'm looking at it, I don't really want to lose that detail either. So I'm going to pull the entire tentacle down just a little bit. There we go. Let's see where we are at the top. It leaves quite a bit of extra at the top. Gonna pull those pixels again responsibly, just a little bit. Okay. Yeah, I feel pretty good about that placement.
Cool.
All right. And also the color of the tentacle, like I had mentioned a while ago and then got sidetracked with lighting. We're going to add just a blank layer on top of the tentacle. I'm going to pull it above the curves layer so the curves layer is not affecting this color layer as well. And then I'm just going to grab a blue from the ocean, paint it on there. Okay. And then I'm going to switch that down to color mode. And now the entire thing is blue, which is too much, but this is the general effect that we're going for. So let's lower the opacity until it starts to look, that looks like much better. It's very, the colors are still coming through, but they're very muted, which is what it would naturally be if it were under the water.
Yes.
Okay. Bottom half is looking pretty good. I'm definitely like, I need to address this front line to clean it up some, but that I think I want to do a little bit later because that's more of like a clean finessing sort of deal. So let me come up here and look at the sky a little bit. So the sky definitely looks a little too gray to me. I also want to bring in some warmth from the side. So this is what I tend to do. I tend to look at it and kind of analyze it first. What do I really want to do with this? And why does it not look right? So it doesn't look right because it looks a little bit too dark. It doesn't look right because there's not some warm yellow coming from the right, which there is a little bit of warm yellow on the tentacle. I might want to move the clouds around a little bit, but we'll see on that. So, okay, let's jump right into adjusting some color stuff on the sky. Let me try color balance with this one, actually.
Nice.
Clip it down.
I like that you're using so many different tools. So everyone in the chat and following along can see there's always more than one way to do things in Photoshop. So
oh my gosh, yes. I mean, that's the sentence I say the most, I think, about Photoshop. If anybody asks me questions, it's like there rarely is a quote unquote wrong answer. The only thing I think is quote unquote wrong, which even then sometimes is not, in my opinion, is when you start to have like a destructive workflow where you're losing pixels. If you lose pixels and you can't get them back, that's not the best way to do it because it's creating a lot more risk for yourself for maybe a lot more work later on if you have to go backwards at all. But aside from that, there's really no wrong answers. Like this program is so robust. It's insane. I mean, there's so many different combinations and ways to get the desired effect that it's just, you know, there's way too many. I don't know like even half of them. And I've been using this program for 20 years. So okay, so midtones in the sky. Yeah, they're definitely looking too gray. So let me just play around with cyan a little bit. Okay, that seems a little bit better. Nope, too magenta-y. And also, just for advertising purposes, I do really like that everything is reading very blue right now, except for the little sucker parts of this. Yes. Because product-wise, you get what, like 3 seconds to look at an ad. So I want the viewer's eyes to go right to the product. I know the product is going to be right here, and I'm going to put it in like a few of the different suckers. But essentially, we're center frame, And I like that the entire frame around it is reading very blue. So it kind of drops off to the eye in the first 3 seconds of it. So definitely like that we're kind of going monochrome around it to bring some attention to the center. Okay, now as far as the yellow goes, I could go into the color balance and highlights, and let's try to add some yellow to that. I don't want it to reach too far over here, so I'm fine doing a little bit of adjustment like that. But what I think I want to do is add a blank layer. I'm going to bring that on top of the color balance layer. Okay, I'm going to just pump my brush way up. I'm going to select like a orangey warm color. And then I'm just going to do like one quick boom like that.
Nice.
And then let's play around with blending mode and see what works. I'm thinking screen is going to be a little bit too hot, but we'll see. Let's lower the opacity if we have it on screen. So I like that. I think I want to do another layer, the same thing, but just hotter up here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want this to start looking like yellowy down here. So actually, before I do that, I'm going to do a layer mask on this, and I'm just going to hit that real quick where it starts to have clouds down there, because I don't want that to start looking like, you know, muddy and brown.
Mm-hmm.
That's really not what we want. So I'm going to add another layer, do the exact same thing that we just did, only I'm going to really centralize it, lower my brush and really centralize it kind of right where that sun is, and then switch it to screen. That's looking a lot closer. Let me lower the opacity. And then even more so, let me move this sky around a little bit and see how much. The thing that's bugging me is these clouds right here. If I zoom in, these clouds right here, they're very dark. They wouldn't have that much orange captured on them. So let me see composite, like composition wise, what sort of sky I've got going on. That looks a little bit more realistic. Yeah. Also, again, I kind of like the line from the clouds going down here and then continuing on with the line of the water. So we got a little bit of, yeah. The only thing that I'm seeing is that the sun is like directly behind the tentacle right now. And realistically, it would be up in the corner with the way that I lit it. So I think what I'm going to do, since this is really hot, I'm just going to use a curves layer and kind of blast this area out just a little bit more. So to the eye, you don't really exactly know where the sun is up there. You just know it's up there somewhere in that corner. So I have it very bright. I'm going to mask that out and paint in just for that up there. And if that starts to look a little bit too white, I can always come in and kind of bring a flat color layer on top of that. But I'm gonna keep that there for now. We might adjust that a little bit more once we start bringing in some of these little chapsticks, because that might affect it. I'm not really sure, so we'll see. The rest of the sky is still just a tad too dark, so I'm gonna do one more curves layer that's just gonna globally affect the whole sky. Just kind of pull up from the center. See, okay, now that right side's looking too bright. Okay, I'm going to lower the opacity of that other curves layer that blasted out that sky. Brings back a little bit of detail. And then let me move the sky around just a tad more. Okay. Nudging some of these orange layers that we did so it doesn't bleed over into the clouds.
Totally.
Okay. All right. So the sky itself, let me see how focused it is. It's not super sharp, which I mean is good. That's what we're going for. We don't want it to be super sharp, because if the focal range, if I'm looking at a focal range where like the front line of the water is super soft, that sky is likely going to be pretty soft as well. And the main thing in focus is going to be this octopus tentacle. So photography wise, my focal range is pretty shallow. I'm not sure if I want to add more blur onto the sky or not, but let's experiment with it to see if it makes sense. And since it's a smart object, I can always adjust that layer. So I'm layer later. My goodness. Okay, so filter, blur. Let's try Gaussian blur. How do you guys pronounce it? Gaussian or Gaussian? Because I feel like that's a never-ending debate in Photoshop.
It is a debate. Yeah, I usually say Gaussian.
Gaussian? Okay, that's a new one for me.
But I mean, 98% chance I'm wrong on that. So
I don't even know where I got Gaussian from. I think that's that's how my brain read it. Maybe the first time I saw it when I was like 12, I don't know. It will forever be Gaussian to me. Okay, so this is some blur. I kind of like it because, again, in advertising, I want the eye to go straight to the product. So I don't want, let's turn the preview on and off to kind of see. I mean, it's really subtle. The main part that I see it in is right here. This cloud area starts to get, there's detail there. So if I bump it up just a tad more, that starts to blur it. And again, turning the preview on and off. Yeah, if the preview's off, you can see a lot more sharp detail in this cloud area. Preview on, that's what the blur would look like. So I like the blur. I think I'm going to keep it. And again, since it's a smart object, I can take it off anytime I want later on if I'm like, I don't really want it to be that sharp.
Definitely.
Okay, so the general structure of our environment is looking pretty good. Still want to do lots of like finishing touch cleanup, but I think all the cleanup that I want to do is probably going to be near the end after I do the rest of my compositing. So I'm going to start bringing in some of my other compositing stuff.
Cool.
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out like where I want to put it in the hierarchy of layers here. I definitely want it above the tentacle. There might be one chapstick that I put down under here that would need to go under this front ocean line. So yeah, I think I'm going to put it under the ocean line and above the tentacle and above like the clipped layer that's there. Cool. So let's dig into some of these chapsticks. I did go through and pick some of the ones that I think are likely going to fit the tentacles the best, but you can see that I shot a lot. So the way that I like to do it is I shoot and shoot and shoot and overshoot because I want as many assets to work with as I possibly can. You never know if like one product is at the correct angle, but you actually like, on this one, I did put like drips on it. So maybe I like the drip on one, but I like the angle on another. So you really never know. So I like shooting as much as I possibly can. I'm going to open all these at once, actually. Might be the easiest way to do this. Whoa. I didn't even ask you to do anything. Okay. All right. Let's open these all in Photoshop. So here are the EOS chapsticks. I wanted to shoot these just because, like, I don't know anyone in EOS, but that'd be awesome if they use this photo as an advertisement. But
yes.
I really wanted to use these because I love their design. It's so satisfying to look at and just hold. And whenever I looked at it, I was thinking hydration. This is what's it called? Glycerin. This is glycerin, by the way, like the gooey stuff that's on there. And that's what you'll see on the tentacle too. I just poured some glycerin over it to get some of that like shine and the drip and stuff, which also, by the way, we're going to have to adjust the temperature of this drip to match the sky a little bit better, but that'll be probably one of the finishing touches that we do a little bit later on.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, so I loved these products. I loved the design of them. It's super satisfying. And the fact that, so I was looking at their Instagram and they're doing a lot of like tropical theme stuff right now. So I was thinking, okay, well, what can I do like in line with tropical, but that matches my kind of like surreal composite-y style. So that's why I started thinking about oceans and things that are in oceans and looking at the shape of these. And I started thinking about how they kind of look like suckers on an octopus tentacle. And I was like, oh, there we go. Like bingo, that'd be pretty cool. Having like this octopus tentacle, like an action shot coming up and, having all these suckers as if it's like something I always like to think about is that the product should always look precious. Like it should look like this precious thing that whatever is in the scene, it wants to have it or hold it or keep it. So like with the moon and the flowers that we were talking about earlier with my Olay shot, the flowers were cradling it because it was like a very precious product. So with this, I like the idea of this octopus. You don't really know if it's like an enemy or a friend. I'm kind of guessing more friend because of all the like flowers and stars. So we're kind of going with an optimistic view of this octopus. But either way, for this octopus to have all these little chapsticks on the suckers, that's showing that it's like desirable. This octopus is like trying to hold on to them and trying to keep them. So might be a little bit deep for some people, but like in advertising, I really do try to go that deep. Okay, so here's where I also use the pen tool to create these layers. I can go ahead and do it with this one as well, although I did already do that for most of these chapsticks. But for those who haven't used the pen tool before, just to show you how quick and easy it is. I know the pen tool is like, it's a love-hate relationship. Like whenever you first start using it, I understand that it can be like really cumbersome and very annoying because it's like, oh my gosh, these little anchor points, which is what we call the individual dot. And then there's the white dots are the handles. So you can, adjust the direction of where the line is going to go, or you can adjust the direction of like the entire line like that. So I understand that it's like it's learning to drive a car, pretty much like learning to parallel park. Woo, going crazy here. It's learning to parallel park essentially. So it can get a little clumsy, but once you get the hang of it after doing it over and over and over again, those who are in here who use the pen tool, I'm pretty sure we can all attest to the fact that it's a very powerful tool, especially with compositing. I mean, you need the pen tool if you're going to do like really advanced compositing.
Yes, most definitely. Have you used the new select subject features within Photoshop?
I have. I like using that whenever I do like white background studio stuff, because it's like a really quick and it knows where the object is for sure. With stuff like this, I get a little bit hesitant just because my focus was already a little bit soft on it, and we have some weird things going on, like this line coming down here, and I think also a little bit is just habit. I've been using the pen tool for so long that in my head it's just like it's my comfort zone now, ironically, even though a lot of people hate the using the pen tool at first. But okay, so now I have my path. I've completed it. This is the path that I did earlier, which is the exact same thing, so ignore that. So I have my work path here. If I'm going to save this file and like keep it to go back to, I would probably do a double click and actually save the entire path, which, let's work responsibly right now. So I'm going to now right click and make selection. 0 pixels, because I don't want to like soften it at all. I want it to match exactly the line that I just created. So now that I have it created, a couple things, I could either just plop a layer mask on that with the layer created. Yes. For me, this is one of the only times that I work in I wouldn't call it destructive because I still have the file so I can go back to it. But this is one of the only times where I'm just going to do a new layer of, you'll see that that's already on there. I'm just going to do a new layer of just that, so I don't have all the other information. The reason why I'm doing that is because thinking ahead in this composite, I know I'm not going to need any of this information around here, like not a single pixel, but keeping all of that information is going to make my file size huge after all of the chapsticks that I pull in there. So when I come across a file where I'm compositing and I'm like, I know for sure I'm never going to need any of that pixel behind it, I tend to go ahead and just do a new layer of just that selection and always keep the file so I can always go back. And if for some crazy reason I do need that blue in the back, I always have the file so I can go back into it. Okay, so here is my chapstick.
That makes sense. That'll keep your file size down and keep it more manageable too.
Yeah, because some of them I've had so many different pieces that I brought in that it just blew it up to like a huge, like large document file size when it was just unnecessary. Like I didn't need that information. Okay, so I like to just drag and drop. So I'm going to choose the layer that I just did, drag and drop. Okay, one thing I do want to do immediately whenever I have it in here is I want to make this into a smart object because I know for sure I'm going to be going up and down with the sizing of this guy whenever I move him around, and I do not want to lose pixel data at all. So I'm going to pull him down.
One thing that I find is super funny is there's no keyboard shortcut for creating a smart object. So I always go in Photoshop and make my own keyboard shortcut for smart objects because I use them so often.
I have been meaning for like literally probably 2 years now to go in and customize keyboard shortcuts, and it's one of those things that I just always I'm like, I'll do it next week, and then I just never do it.
One day.
Okay, so I'm gonna lower the size of him, and the angle of him is matching this sucker really well. I also like where the drip is, how it's kind of playing along with these other drips. So okay, thinking about this realistically, I need to figure out what size he's going to be if he's going to actually fit into that sucker. So I don't know. Let's lower the opacity and just kind of like look behind him a little bit. The top part is definitely coming over the opening. I want the bottom, and some of this is going to have to happen in your head if it's not like a straight on angle. So the bottom of this circle is going inside this sucker. So he's looking a little bit too big. I'm going to lower him. Let's raise the opacity and see what that looks like. I wonder if I should tilt him just a little bit. I don't want to tilt him too much because the drip is right there and you don't want it to, you know, like I can't go like that for a couple reasons.
That's not gonna work. Yeah.
One, the drip, and two, the lighting is similar enough. I could probably get away with it, but I really want to maintain the integrity of the lighting setup that I had.
Yes.
Okay. So I think that's good for now. I mean, we're definitely compositing. We're going to come back in and deal with like the shadows and the seam and everything on him. But I don't know which sucker. No, I think he looks better on this sucker. Feels weird that I'm using the sucker so many times. The word sucker. Like, how often do you use the word sucker? Okay. Yeah. I feel pretty. Yeah, especially when I zoom out. When you zoom in, like sometimes I start to get way overly critical, and really the thing that my eye is catching is just that we haven't done the clean lighting and shadowing aspect to it yet. So my eye is like, oh, is the angle right? But really it's the lighting. So when I zoom out, I like the angle. I think it works well. So really it's probably just the shadowing down here that we haven't done yet that my eye is picking up on, and it's like, I don't like that. Also, I need to keep in mind that these don't have to be perfectly straight on in each sucker. I mean, if it's an octopus, it might not have grabbed it completely straight on. So they could be a little bit off from time to time. Okay, so that's the first chapstick. So let me grab the second one. What do I want to do? I feel like there was another one that I had picked that was... Is it that one? Aha, I think it's that one. Yeah, it was another open face one because I want to, advertising wise, I want to show the product in all aspects that I possibly can in the photo. So like with the Olay, I had one with the lid on and one with the lid off. So same sort of thing that I want to do here. I want to show the product in lots of different angles, having the lid on, having the lid off. And I just did the same pin path tool, but let's do it again real quick. Pin. I promise you guys, the pin tool is worth it. If you're having trouble with it, just keep practicing because practice makes perfect, and it really does make it way easier if you're used to using the pin tool. And like we've said before, for more advanced compositing, it's just, you can't get around it. You absolutely need to have that pin tool. Otherwise, you're going to have like a lot of rigid edges, and yeah, it's not gonna be fun. It's not gonna be your friend. So some of these like little bubble things, I kind of don't want to keep those on there because I want to keep the product looking pretty pristine. So I'm going to just make my path a teeny bit inside the actual line of the product, just so I keep it looking clean. And again, this would actually be one of the tasks where the Wacom tablet would make it a little bit quicker. So if I had, a ton of these to do, I'd be like, no, I'm going to pull out the Wacom tablet. Because for me, with doing the pin tool, having an actual pin when you're doing it makes it a lot quicker. Okay, so make selection, new layer. All right, tentacles there. Let's pull this new one in here. All right, convert to smart object immediately so we do not lose any pixel data.
Yes.
Lowering it. This one's probably going to have to be, and also I have to keep in mind like the spatial awareness here. This one would be a little bit bigger than some of these back here because the tentacle's kind of going back in space. So this would be a little bit smaller. I'm not sure how much smaller yet. We'll see. And also, mental note that I'm making to myself is that we're losing the edge of the product in the sky a little bit. That'll be definitely one of the last cleanup things that we do because we don't want to lose the product for sure. That's the most important part. Okay, let me do like just a rough, quick layer mask on it. One that we will go back and probably clean up. But this will help me see how it's like sitting in the space of the tentacle. See, already I can see that the edge is, I think, a little bit too big. I could probably get away with that, but let me see. I have to do a balancing act here between, because not all the suckers are the same size.
Right.
So I have to do a balancing act between what realistically does it look like the size can be in that sucker versus I don't want it to suddenly be way too small compared to this front one. So like, you know, if I had it down to here, that doesn't look realistic at all because the front one would not be that drastic of a size difference to the back one. So it looks like that's pretty close. It could, the back one could be a little bit bigger compared to the front one. But again, we have to do a balancing act with the actual like suckers and the tentacle. Let me turn that on and off and see where the sucker actually is. I mean, that's pretty close. And I also have to decide like how deep down into the sucker do I want these little chapstick things to go. So that would make it deeper down in there, like it has a tighter grasp on it, which really will probably make it look more realistic. So they're not just, yeah, that looks better. So they're not just like sitting barely on top of the sucker. Because when you look at how deep these suckers are, realistically, they would probably be touching the bottom of the sucker. So I have to kind of consider how deep down in there do I want this thing to look? Therefore, meaning how high up do I want that layer mask to go, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, again, we're going to deal with shadows and lighting and stuff, but placement wise, I think that looks okay. And then for this one, I had thought about having the top, like the cap, be like popping off of it.
Cool.
So I do have an image of that. Let's pull that over. I already did the whole pin path tool thing with it. Convert to smart object. And again, might be something I take out whenever whenever all is said and done, but good thing to have it there now. Okay, so easy peasy to kind of match this because it was shot at the same angle. So I pretty much just lower it to be the exact size. Boop, that matches. Okay. Let's see where I want that. And again, I'm probably going to adjust the placement of that a little bit later on, but so already to my eye, the non-advertiser in me is like, oh, but there's so many juicy details. I want to like crop and get even closer. But the advertiser in me is like, no, like keep the negative space. Like you really do need breathing room. You never know when they're going to add text or copy. Like maybe they're going to put like a studio shot of one of the chapsticks down here and then some of their brand copy. Like you never know. You want to give them more space. So like the artists in us want to like fill the space, but advertisers have their job to do too. Graphic designers have their job to do too, and so do copywriters. So you need to leave them like the space to do their job if you're gonna do advertising stuff. Okay, so let's see what else we got. Okay, I like the dripping one. Also, I pretty much bought what I feel like is like a lifetime supply of chapsticks in order to do this. So, but I mean, I love EOS, so it's totally fine. I have like 12 of them now. Also, a fun thing, if you'll see the reflection in here, how it's like sparkly, that was definitely, can you see that in the tentacle one? Oh, which by the way, I haven't even saved this yet. Oh my gosh, that's horrible. Let's save it before anything happens. Okay. My goodness, poor practices. Okay, definitely save and save often.
Nice. Do you keep the auto save on in your preferences?
I don't. Where is that? Tell me right now.
If you go to edit at the top and then go down to preferences, like all the way down to the bottom. There we go.
Wait, where's preferences?
It might be in file.
Just in Photoshop. Preferences?
There it is. I should know about that. And then go down to, I believe it's in, let's just check file handling. Towards the top.
Okay.
There we go. And auto save.
Oh, so there's recovery.
Yep, auto save recovery information every 10 minutes. So you can change that setting. I'm
going to lower that to 5.
Yeah. And then that way, if Photoshop quits and you reopen it, it'll say like, do you want to save this, get back this recovered file? Right.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, cool. So we are saved. Our butts are covered with that. Okay. Where was I at? Oh, I was going to show you the reflection thing. So with the tentacle, do I still have that pulled up at all? Oh, well, there you go. I had this like little sparkly just poster board that I bought at Walmart. And one, I used it because it's like it has like a slick waterproof layer on it. So I knew that pouring that like vegetable glycerin all over it was not going to create a giant mess and I could just wipe it off. But two, I thought like, and you never know when those sparkles are going to show up in the reflections of all the stuff that I'm doing. So that could also add another like Lisa Frank kind of addition to it. So that did in fact come through in some of them.
Yeah, you can see it.
Yeah.
How fun.
Super tiny little detail that realistically in like an actual ad in a magazine, no one's going to see that, but I know it's there and it makes me happy. So yeah,
that's important. It's cool to think about things that aren't even on camera affecting, you know.
Yeah. And already for sure, this drip color is going to need to be, you know, adjusted just like these are as well. This one's probably going to have to be adjusted a little bit more because once I create this into a smart object, it's going to be in front of the very light part of the sky. So that's going to have to be adjusted quite a bit. That'll be one of the last, you know, cleanup things that we do. I don't know. I'm not sure if I want that to be on that sucker or not, but we'll see. Let's pull in all the chapsticks and kind of rearrange. Yeah. Oh, that's definitely way too big still compared to that bottom one. That's a little bit closer. Yeah, the size makes sense to me. Big, medium, small. Yeah. Okay. I could do the quick layer mask here. Let's just go ahead and do that. But I might put this one on a different sucker. I haven't decided yet. I definitely want to pull in all of the chapsticks and kind of do a little chapstick dance and rearrange and see where I want them.
Totally. When did you shoot this?
Yesterday.
Nice. That's fun.
I really wanted to be like more prepared than that, but I was just like so crammed with client work that I'm like, I mean, I made the tentacle like 4 or 5 days ago, so I was halfway prepared. It was just the shooting part of it happened yesterday real quick. Totally.
Yeah, but that's good. It's a fresh project, you know, you like still fresh on the mind.
Oh yeah. That is a habit that I have, is that I'll start something sometimes and I'm so excited about it, but if it starts taking too long, just the enthusiasm fades and I'm like, I'm not feeling this anymore. So I like to work fast. Convert to smart object again. I like to work fast. I like to, you know, I have an idea. I want to do it. I want to do it quick.
I feel you.
Okay, this one. I think it might be good on that tentacle. I mean, lots of adjustments still to do, but thinking about sizing. I don't want it to get too close to the edge. Gosh, I don't know. Both tentacles could work, but advertising wise, I think probably the top tentacle is going to be better because I just don't like how tight it is reading to the edge. And probably if an advertiser would ever use this and they do have to crop, especially if you're doing, you know, like an Instagram story is very tall, very vertical and very squished, they would probably be cropping that off. And advertisers do not like to crop their products, obviously. That's kind of the whole point of this photo. Plus, I also kind of like that it's going to be behind this top line, which might set it back into the environment a little bit more.
Yeah, I like that.
So, yeah, I agree. I don't know how far out of the sucker I want it to be because the issue here is that this sucker is like a little bit smaller, but size wise, this one would need to be about this big. I could maybe get it down a little bit smaller. Yeah, that might work. Okay, let's do a layer mask and see if that works on that sucker.
Nice.
All right. Good thing about this particular thing that I'm doing right now is that if it's covered up, no one can see the actual inside of the sucker. So while this sucker is thicker, it has thicker walls and like a very teeny tiny opening. Once I have the chapstick on there, people aren't going to know that because we're going to play around with like the lighting and shadows and everything. So I'm going to make it look like the opening of that sucker is actually that big.
Nice.
Okay, see, now I'm getting too nitpicky. We're just doing a rough draft, Katelin. It doesn't need to be that. Okay. Yeah, definitely. I think I like that a lot more. And again, it's okay if some of these are like deeper into the suckers and maybe like the octopus is getting ready to lose the grip on that one. I don't know. It just kind of adds a little bit of movement to it. Lots of things we're going to have to do with this one, including like darkening up this highlight that bounced up. The highlight would be there if it was above the water, because the water would be reflecting the light up underneath it. If it was underwater, light is not getting under there. So we're going to have to definitely correct that quite a bit, as well as the color. I'm going to go ahead and adjust the color just because that's bugging my eyes, like drawing my attention away from some of the other things that I want to look at. So I'm just going to do an entire blank layer. I'm going to grab some sort of blue. I don't know, that blue. Entire blank layer that I've clipped down, in case no one saw that I clipped it down to the chapstick. I'm going to do the same thing that I did on the tentacle. So I'm going to switch it to color, and then I'm just going to lower the opacity a little bit. There we go. So it's like a muted color.
There we go.
Much better. And then obviously, again, we're going to do a lot of... Okay, see, now that I'm looking at this, I do like the placement of it, but it is bugging me how high up in that sucker that's reading.
Okay,
so, where's my tentacle? Where is my tentacle? I think I'm going to actually do a little bit of liquify and just open this sucker up just a little bit.
Nice.
Okay, so filter, liquify. Welcome to Liquify, everyone.
There we go.
I love Liquify. It's like just the tiniest little nudge, especially in compositing. I mean, and compositing is huge, because if you need just a tiny little nudge to get that angle or that, man, is my brush size huge or tiny? I think it's huge. What the heck was I liquefying last time I used that? Jeez. Okay. But in compositing, especially, liquify is very important, because like if you need just a little bit of a slight different angle, then liquify is your man for sure. One thing, I do not want to affect this tentacle that's underneath it. So I'm going to go over here and create like a little, it's a mask. So I'm masking over this area. So whenever I use my liquify tool, if my liquify tool starts to bump into that, it's not going to move it. It's going to freeze. I think they call it a freeze mask. I forget the actual correct terminology for it. Okay, so now that that's masked out, I'm going to just use my little nudge tool here. I can see my chapstick there, so I can kind of guesstimate about how wide I want to go with it. I mean, the bubble right here, like I think it's a drip. It's actually bumping into the other one, but I'm not sad if we lose that drip. So if it starts to look a little wonky when we come back in, I can always just mask out that drip. I also don't want these like little flowers, and they're actually sprinkles from the baking aisle at Walmart. So nice. I really don't want these sprinkles to look warped and stretched unrealistically. So I might need to come back in and adjust those, but we'll see. Yeah, let's see what that looks like. Okay, and now everything has shifted with the layer mask. So let me harden my line. Whoop, wrong color. Okay. Yeah, that gives us a lot more sucker to work with. So, you know, I could have gotten away with probably just having the chapstick a little bit higher up, but that's kind of what, in my opinion, the really sharp, polished advertising images, that's what they have going for them, is that they don't just like, yeah, I could deal with it. Like they go back in and they fix it, you know?
Yes.
Okay, so now I have a bigger sucker to work with. So let's collapse that. Go back to, which chapstick is this? I don't know if you guys name your files. I do not. I really have a hard time with doing that. I'm not very organized with my layers. It's because I want to go quick. Like I want to edit and I want to go quick, very fast.
Yes. There we go. Okay,
let's lower him into the sucker, which is kind of what I was wanting. Although I will say, since this is a split color chapstick, I don't want to lose that totally, because that's kind of like a cool aspect of their product, is that some of the chapsticks are different colors, like one on top and one on bottom. So since I think I'm considering that like a feature, like a cool feature of the product, I do want to still show that. So I don't want him to be like totally lost in the sucker.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. There we go. I'm happy with that. That's a lot better than when it was just like kind of plopped on top there. And then of course we're going to go back into the lighting and deal with all that. All right. So tentacles and chapstick wise, I feel like the balance is still reading too much about the octopus and the tentacles in the ocean and not enough about the product. So I'm going to add more product in there. The question here is just where do I want to put it?
Right.
Probably in this central one. Like when I just glance at it, it's kind of hard to do since I've been looking at it for a while now. But when I just glance at it, I feel like this is the central area. I mean, obviously it's kind of the center, but I think that's probably the area where a first glance eye is going to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
So let me see. Let's try this guy. Oh, I already have him pathed out as well. Pull him in and then convert to smart object. Okay. Let's lower him and see what he looks like in that sucker. You know, I actually do like the color combination of that too, because it kind of starts to bring in some of these like green sprinkles and the star a little bit. He's obviously too big right now. Let me lower him. He's going to be like right next to this guy. So let's just use that as, yep, that's about the same size. Just use that as like a size comparison.
Yeah, good idea.
Okay. Yeah, I like that placement.
Looks good.
I think I'm good with the amount of chapsticks that are there. Again, I can always add in more later. I still want to keep like some of the suckers. Like that's kind of the cool part of this. So I like that this sucker is empty because it draws attention to this little drip, which makes it feel more like an animal, like more real, like it's coming out of the ocean.
Yeah.
I mean, I could do with maybe another tiny one up here. I don't know. I might add that in later, but for now, I think we're good with like the placement of the chapsticks, and I can always come back and finesse it a little bit more. I do this a lot. I do the zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out kind of look. This one's actually reading a little bit too big to me, the chapstick. Like even though the sucker is bigger, just the chapstick itself is a teeny bit big. That's better. Yeah, because I don't think the front, even though the sucker is big, the front of that tentacle is not really pushing forward in space a whole lot more than what this area is. So yeah, that's kind of tricky. The sucker's bigger, but the spatial difference is not that much. So the chapstick would actually be not that different. Although I kind of don't like that the chapstick is tilted. So let me straighten that up.
Nice.
Okay. Let's see. Questions in my head. Do I really want to get into like finessing the shadows yet? Okay, one thing that I know is that I shot one shot of this tentacle that has a drip coming from the top, and I know that I want to add that in because I kind of want to have it like flinging, like whoosh in space to kind of like mimic the lid popping of this thing, which actually I think that lid is a little crazy far. Let me pull him in. Yeah, and it's popping up. It looks a little bit better. Okay, yeah, so let's grab that drip shot that I have of the tentacle. I'm gonna put him into the tentacle layer. So, all right, where are you? There we go. I think that's him. Oh, why did that just open up in preview? Weird. Oh, that's not the drip I was thinking of, but that drip could work. I mean, I like it. All right, let's use that drip. It's bigger, so it gives me a little bit more. And I mean, it's behind the same, background. So the drip at the top, if I'm compositing it in, is not going to look that different from the drip here. And I like that drip. It's a pretty drip.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm going to open that. I'm just going to grab that drip.
Grab the drip.
Okay. Gosh, my nose is so itchy. Sorry. If anyone's like, why does she keep itching her nose? Okay, so I'm going to use pen tool, super vast, grab this strip. Also, something for me to take note of for like finishing touches. I love all these like little spots of glare that's happening on the drips. When I do the pin path, I'm cutting off like the softness. You see how soft it is on the outside there? I'm cutting that off. So I'm going to bring that back in because that's like a really fun, juicy detail part. So I'm going to bring that back in later near the end with like all the cleanup stuff. Basically just putting on like a screen layer of like a glare. So
yeah.
Okay, I have it selected, new layer, and pull it in. Okay. I don't really feel the need to make this into a smart object just because it's so small and it's not the product itself. So I don't really think that's going to be necessary. Okay, so I'm going to have that there, and then I want to bring it out. So I could use all sorts of stuff. I could use warp or puppet warp or liquify. This thing is pretty straightforward, so I think I'm going to use warp, but I know that it's going to be easier to warp just this tiny stem as opposed to trying to warp the drop and keeping the drop shape itself. So I'm going to put the drop shape about where I want it. I think probably right there. That might be too close to the product, but we'll see. And then I'm just going to warp the actual stem part of it because that's going to be way easier to shape than trying to shape that entire like droplet. So warp, and then just pull it up. Okay, let's zoom out and see what that looks like. Way too big. Holy crap, that's a really big drip. We just want this to be like a fun little detail. That's better, but again, it's kind of hard to see because the darkness doesn't match, so we're going to have to lighten that up quite a bit. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do a layer mask on that, I think, and try to blend it in. Okay, and now let's adjust this like dark blue that's going on here. Lots of different ways to do this. I'm probably going to put a couple different layers on it. Let's start with adjustments and do like the selective color. I'm going to clip that down. And then, okay, so it's blue, so we need to take care of the blue. The background is very yellow compared to that. And then lighten it. Yeah, that kind of lightens the cut. So I like the color of it right there. The color seems to, it's maybe a little bit green, but the color seems to match quite a bit better to the background. Obviously, it's still far too dark. So let's leave that selection layer there for now and see. How do we want to lighten this? I don't think I want to do a curves layer because that's going to lighten all the light stuff as well. I mean, you could try to let's just try it and see, but I don't think this is going to work. So I'm going to leave like the brightest where it is because I don't want to blow out, you know, the edges here. I don't want to blow out that detail. I do want to bring up the shadows though. That's working okay. The color isn't quite there yet, but that's a little bit better.
Yeah.
So that color seems to be matching the clouds a little bit more to me, which is nice because I think it would probably bounce at least some of the clouds on the edge over here. But I still think like right around in here and on the right edge, I want it to match this sky. Like I want that really badly. So I'm going to do like a blank layer in there. I'm going to just grab the actual color from the sky and I'm going to paint. And then we're just going to see what we're going to do with this layer. I don't really know yet. We're flying by the seat of our pants. Let's hope this works.
Yeah, this is a tough one.
Yeah. Okay.
I've got a couple ideas too if you're if you want any input.
Yeah, go for it.
So I think it might be cool to try to use blend if on this layer.
Okay.
And then choose the dark parts to become invisible. So basically you see the sky through it.
Okay. All right. So
might work, might not.
Yeah, I've used blend if like I think 3 times. So if you want to walk me through
I'll talk you through. Okay, so the first thing, and let's just turn the 3 layers above it off for now, just like visibly off. Yeah. Okay, and then double click like right there on your layer 13. There we go. So this is our layer style, and then right here you'll see blend if those 2 sliders. So the top slider controls. Okay. Yeah. Top slider controls visibility of the layer you're on, and the bottom slider controls the visibility based on the underlying layer. So in this case, we would want to do that. But the real trick is you have to hold Alt or Option when you click and drag that slider. So it separates it out into 2. So hold Alt or Option, it'll separate it into 2 sliders. And then it starts to bring into feathering. So that one you can take all the way to the right. There we go, all the way to the right. And then the left one, you can start to bring over as well. And that's going to be your feathering. So that's going to be like your amount of control that you can choose like where this layer is and is not visible. And then of course you can do it with the background too. But in this case, I think just this layer might be, and then you could change it to like a screen blend mode, the droplet itself. And then, that may do it. Obviously we're playing here. We're seeing like, hey, I don't know, maybe lighten or something like that. Screens looks like a little bit too much, but it is kind of a tough one.
Yeah. I mean, this might be something where later on I actually just go back in and reshoot a drop with like the lighter color behind it.
Yeah, that could be it too.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I do that sometimes if it's like a small little detail that I really want to keep and it's just not working with the composite. It's like, like I can always go back in and shoot it.
Reshoot it. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Definitely. Yeah, because especially when you're working with like advertising, you want to get it right. You want to get it absolutely right.
Definitely.
So I'm gonna turn this. Yeah, go ahead.
I think your color layers that you had earlier are still probably totally valid here. That's probably still a good idea to have those like curves and the other color layers on there.
What's it look like? I think it's gonna bug me. I think it's gonna bug me if I don't shoot it right.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn this off. I'm gonna just know. Well, okay, I'm gonna keep it there just for like compositing reasons to know compositionally where it is. But the end product, I'm going to take that drip off. I'm going to reshoot it probably after this call because it's going to bug me. And then I'm going to composite that into the final stuff.
Nice.
So I think I can probably save this one, but let's see. Okay, where are we at? Chapstick. See, this is another reason to possibly name my layer so I don't have to like.
I don't name my layers either.
Oh, good. We're not layer shaming each other. That's good.
No way.
There it is. Okay. So let's see. So if I were to do the blend if thing.
I have one more idea that may or may not work. So if you made a new layer right above that, and then set that layer mode to from normal to lighten.
And then just grab the
clone stamp from the sky right next to it. That may do it.
Where's my sky? There's my sky. Oh.
There we go.
Okay. And then my blank layer. That was it, right?
Yeah. I think that works a little bit better than the previous technique.
Yeah.
I like that you can still see the like little bits of light in there.
Let me, just out of curiosity, let me grab some of the sky that's the lighter. Maybe over here, like on the edge, because I feel like a drip warps things.
Yeah.
So it would have more than just that one. Ooh, that's too much. And then if I just like do like a soft erase around the edge.
Oh, that's a cool idea.
There. Yeah, that looks much better because like the drip is going to actually warp the space around it. So it would be getting the whole sky pretty much behind it and not just the dark spot. Yeah, that totally saved that drip. Nice. So yeah, I'm just going to reshoot the main big one up there. And actually then if I'm going to shoot that, I could try to actually just whip it in real life. Just whip the little drip and try to get it actually instead of like
whip that drip.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Let's start digging into like cleaning up some of these edges a little bit. Also, now that I zoomed in, I see that there's an edge on that tentacle that's going to bug me to death if I don't get that. Okay, going back to my tentacle with the layer mask. I think the smudge tool is completely underrated. I'm in love with the smudge tool, especially for layer masks, like softening the edge manually instead of doing any sort of like, blur filter. I personally love that. That's one of my touches that I like to do at the end for sure. Because like this is like extremely sharp up here, and especially if you look at the focus going on, that's not extremely sharp. So I would just go in with the smudge tool and kind of just pull in the edge a little bit of the layer mask, not the actual pixels, the layer mask.
Yes.
And that softens it to look way more realistic.
I love that technique as well. Yeah. I had some ideas for the smudge tool for like under the water as well. Once you're further along in a composite, that could be kind of an interesting way to do that.
Oh, which actually now you reminded me, I was going to add bubbles under there. Oh, and I was going to, there's lots of things that I'm going to do before we start doing the shadows on the tentacles. We might not finish this today, but that's okay because we have tomorrow to finish up the actual product.
We do, definitely. Yeah, cool. For those of you joining, be sure to check out tomorrow because this is so much fun.
I think I'll deal with the bottom half here in a bit.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that smudge tool technique is really fantastic. So you'll just want to make sure where it says sample all layers, make sure that's not checked. I'm just reminding the audience there. So we're just doing this on the layer mask itself, not the layer.
Okay. I mean, I don't want to smudge the drips too much just because I really like how, and when I start looking, that is pretty sharp over there. Also, this is the area that the customer's eye is going to be like drawn to the most. So I don't want to make that too soft at all.
Totally.
Okay. Actually, since we have these drips here, let's just go ahead and like do that same sort of adjustment that we did. Okay, so we had a blank layer above it, and then we turned it to lighten.
Lighten, and then
then we grabbed clone stamp from the sky.
And the nice thing about the clone stamp tool is if you don't feel like going down to that other layer, you can see where it says sample up at the top. And then change to current and below, or all layers. Either one will work. All layers will grab layers above it. So like if you had coloring layers or retouching layers above it, it would grab those too. So both would work, and then you can do it right there.
Nice. That is definitely a time saver. One even brighter.
That's cool. I like that technique.
Yeah.
Teamwork.
Okay. Definitely want to keep the brightness running throughout the stem of it. Went over too much. This is the fine tuning detail that probably a Wacom tablet would be a little bit more helpful with, but
definitely.
My fingers are going to get a workout with the little finger trackpad today. Okay, and then let's bring in some of this like dark gray. Oh, you know what? That dark gray is actually darker. Yeah, it's actually darker than some of that. So I need to go in and probably darken that drop. Yeah, so I'm going to darken that and then paint it in for just the drop, not the actual like tentacle or anything. Because then wouldn't that still have the lighten?
Yep, should work.
Yeah.
Good thinking. Good way to do it.
Sometimes Photoshop feels like, I don't know, like a math problem, and I'm not a mathematician at all. So I get proud of myself anytime that I finally figure out something. I'm like, oh my gosh, I did it.
Yes, I feel the same way.
Very numbers based sometimes. See that? Is that still too dark or too light? Yeah. Okay. There we go. And then I just don't want it to like disappear over here.
And
it's looking like a little, I don't know. I feel like I just want to slap a color layer on there real quick.
Yeah.
Like just to touch up some of the spots that's still reading like a little vibrant blue-ish.
Totally. I feel that for sure.
Nothing major, just a small. Still want to keep like all the oranges and the highlights and everything. I just don't want any of that like magenta coming through.
Yes.
I'm just going to do like a paint and then erase. Okay. Erase. All right, let's switch that down to color and then we can adjust the opacity of it.
Yeah, nice.
So that's like super subtle, but it really, let me zoom in.
Yeah, it definitely helps.
It's so subtle, but yeah, I don't want any, I don't like magenta blues. I don't want that showing. Okay, so same thing over here on this one. So that's the color layer. Okay, this one I am going to
Yeah,
label because
when you need to,
yeah,
it's available to you to
I will get
name your layers.
confused.
Yes, I do the same thing. You know, if you need it, get it done. But
Yeah.
most of the time, just trying to get the job done, and
Yeah.
naming layers just takes time.
Although I will say I've started to do some retouching for other like commercial photographers, and that has definitely made me change into better practices because they have no idea what's going on. Whenever they open it, they're like, what is this mess? And then I'm like, oh, okay, let me name the layers for you so you understand what's happening here.
Exactly.
So that, yeah. In some instances, I feel like I have good naming etiquette, and in other instances, not so much.
A lot of the time, I will go back and group like similar layers or similar ideas or themes, and then I'll just name the group. That's usually.
Yeah. I guess that's kind of what I did there in the beginning, the tentacle and ocean.
Yeah. That's usually what I'll do. But it depends on the client, like you said. Like a lot of the time, before delivering to a client, I'll just go through and do a big cleanup and make things as simple as possible. And I want, like you said, you want the client to be able to open the file and kind of know what's going on to understand it without.
Okay, so just doing the same process, which now I'm in love with that process, to have that blank layer, change it to lighten, and then clone stamp from the sky behind it. I'm gonna change that to color just to get rid of the last few little vestiges of magenta.
Yes.
Yeah, that looks much better.
That works well. Yeah.
Cool. All right. And again, if anyone's just joining, this drip at the top is going to be reshot with the light background behind it. So that's just there for, compositing, just to like reference, know where it is.
Yes.
Okay. So another thing that I did shoot that I thought would be kind of cool is the outside of this tentacle. I have some blue sparkly paper that was just sitting around in the studio here at home. And I thought maybe curving it like the shape of the tentacle. See, where did I put those? There it is. Yeah, so let's clip that on there and just see, because I kind of like how it looked like scales.
That's cool.
Yeah, like very fishy, but also very, I keep referencing her, but very Lisa Frank, because glitter and sparkles, and why not? Okay. Alrighty, so I'm gonna, again with this one, I don't feel necessary to like do a pin path or be safe. I don't feel like I need to be safe with these pixels, because I can come back to this shot anytime I want. So I'm just gonna grab as many of the sparkles as I can with a lasso tool, just real quick, make it fast. Okay, and then new layer. Then I'm gonna,
in this case too, another like quick keyboard shortcut is you could use Control-C, Control-V. So copy here, and then you could just paste it right onto the other document too.
Okay, so Control-C for copy and then Control-D. See, like all the coolest like little shortcuts and doodads and whatnots and Photoshop wizard. All right. So let's see. I think I want to, do I want to warp this or do I want to liquify this? I think I'm going to try to warp it. I'm going to lower the opacity. The main reason why I'm going to warp this is because, let me zoom in here. It's important for me to get this edge where the sparkles are actually at an angle. Because if I just had it flat and I put it on the tentacle, it's not going to look right, because the tentacle is actually a very curved shape. So therefore, whatever texture I put on it also needs to be curved. So that's something that I really love about compositing, is that you really need to think ahead. Case in point, this drop that had too dark of a background behind it. You really need to think ahead to be able to get things to look pretty realistic. So it doesn't need to be a perfect match to the tentacle by any means, but I'm going to warp it. And actually, just looking at this, I think I'm going to warp it, and then I might follow it up with a liquify just to kind of pull, like snap in that like sharp curve, like right here.
That's cool.
So
yeah, I like that.
I'm going to warp it out to the edge. Nice. Okay, so the actual curve is right here. It curves down. I'm going to click enter. Bring back the opacity a little bit. Okay, so then it's just that one notch in there that we're gonna take care of with Liquify. So
Yeah.
Filter, Liquify. Actually, let me go back to lower the opacity so I can see behind it a little bit.
There we go.
There. Okay. So filter and Liquify. Okay, Aaron, if you want to like this screen over here is a mystery to me. So I know that there's ways to like lessen the opacity. So walk me through it.
Cool. So right where you see show backdrop right there, it's a checkbox, show backdrop, whole thing. So you have a few different options there. You can choose mode in front and behind. That's where I would start with, just to like see if that does what you want it to do. So you just click on behind there. There we go. So that didn't seem to do it. So let's change that back to in front.
Okay.
Okay, and then you have your opacity slider right there. So you can kind of see, push that to the right a little bit. There you go. You can kind of see through it a little bit more there.
Perfect.
So that's kind of usually where I'll start. You can choose your individual layers, but I don't tend to use that as much.
Okay. Yeah. This is one of those instances where I'm like, you know, I know Aaron has talked about this before. Wait, what did it just say? The backdrop settings are preventing.
You just can't see it. So maybe take your opacity instead of 100, maybe like 90.
99.
Yeah, something like that. There we go.
The backdrop settings are preventing the preview.
Maybe try blend there.
What is going on?
I don't know. That's maybe try to bring that back down a little bit more.
There. Okay.
Like
it's just
that.
super sensitive with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I can still see it. I mean, barely, but I can still see the tentacle.
There we go.
But yeah, I knew that this screen has like a wealth of tools and adjustments and stuff. And I'm like, you know, one of these days I need to take the time to actually sit there and look at all these adjustments and figure it out, because Liquify is one of those things where it's like I get in there and I just guesstimate. And then when I come back out, I'm like, close. And let me go back in again. And I know that there's like adjustments there that I can. Oh, you know what? There's also another curve here I forgot about. Right here. Okay.
Yeah.
Filter, Liquify, do that again. And again, we're just doing this to be able to get like the sparkly edge to match up with the tentacle. So it does not look flat and has a little bit more awareness and space. And, you know, the edge doesn't have to be perfectly right up against the tentacle. It just needs to be close enough that I'm getting in the image of the sparkles, some of those sparkles that are like very much at an angle and stacked on top of each other. So let's see how close that is.
There we go.
Yeah. I'm going to pump that back up to 100. Yeah, that's really close to the shape.
That's cool.
Okay. So my favorite part of sparkly stuff is picking the blending mode. I'm guessing overlay. Yep.
Nice.
I love overlay.
Yeah, beautiful.
Okay, so let's clip that down to the actual tentacle, which was down here. Okay, that's not the right layer, but I'm still working. I hate trying to scroll down and finding the layer.
Yeah. I use Control or Command and open and close brackets sometimes. That'll just move your layer up and down the stack. Yeah.
Looking at the Liquify, I feel like this is a little bit too warpy, just a tad. So I'm probably I like the top parts. By the way, we're still gonna do like a layer mask so it's not bleeding over into everything, but give me a minute. So this is just looking a little bit too stretched. So I'm gonna go back into Filter Liquify and try to unstretch that just a tad. That's something with Photoshop. Like I don't want it to look Photoshop-y. I want it to look surreal and like, holy cow, I know that's not real, but like it looks real. So how did they do that? That's what I want. So I don't want pixels to look like I've, you know, abused them in this process. Okay, that looks quite a bit better. If I do the undo and redo, that looks really stretched and that looks much more realistic.
Definitely helps out there for sure.
Perfect. All right, so now I really only want that blue to be hitting the blue of the tentacle. So I'm going to put a layer mask on there and just use a big old fuzzy brush and start painting. Actually, I'm going to just paint the whole thing black first because I don't trust my eyes to not catch some of the sparkles like being elsewhere. Which I know I can always do like let me paint real quick. I can always do what is that? What do you call that? Like the
quick mask.
quick mask. Yeah, I can always do the
Yeah.
quick mask just to like see and make sure, but still, I don't trust my eyes enough for that, especially with everything that's going on with this crazy tentacle. So I don't want them to kind of bleed over into the sparkles. I want it to look like it's realistically blending. So I'm just going to do some soft brush blending around the edge.
Nice. Looking great.
Okay. Trying to think of all the things that I have to do to this image after the sparkles. I'm always trying to think like steps ahead. Definitely need to go back in and start adjusting some of that shadowing of the chapsticks to make them actually sit like realistically in that setting. Oh, I also haven't even been addressing the fact that I still need to kind of probably toy around a little bit, at least with this front water line, because I don't like how you can just see straight through it. Not at least to that extent. That's a little bit too dramatic for me.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that the sparkles are in, and I love how that looks, very Lisa Frank. Cool. Yeah, let's go ahead and adjust like this. See, so many things in my head. I forgot I need to add bubbles. I'm doing bubbles to the bottom because if that octopus tentacle is actually coming up through the water, there's going to be a lot of action and movement going on down here.
Totally.
So in front of the tentacle, totally forgot what that layer even was. Okay, in front of the tentacle, let's add some bubbles. So stock, I have some stock photos of some different bubbles. I like that this one is a lot. It's a lot of little bubbles. So I'm going to drop that in. Since it's an all black screen, I can just switch that mode down to actually screen. Perfect. And then we have just the white bubbles coming up. Also, I keep seeing, oh, you know what? That little pink thing is from, let me disable the layer mask right now. It's from the model's dress, I think. Yeah, it's from the model's dress reflecting up in there. So I don't want that pink in there. That does not look okay to me. So I'm going to create a layer mask, or not a layer, a clipping mask. And then I'm just going to paint in some teal color to match that, switch it down to color. Perfect. Take care of that little blip right there. Yep. Okay, back to the bubbles.
Back to the bubbles.
Okay, the bubbles themselves, I was gonna say they're too sharp, but like with how tiny they are, I might blur it a little bit later, but they also seem a little bright to me. Let me lower the opacity just a little bit. I don't want to distract from the product that's at the top of the ocean, like the top half. So that needs to be just like a little detail. Okay, I'm gonna do a copy of this layer. Gonna use the exact same layer. I'm just going to make it quite a bit bigger. Nice. So we have like a variation of bubble sizes, you know? Yeah. Yeah. And this one I definitely want to blur. So I'm gonna move it around just so it doesn't, you don't get any like clone stampy sort of feel. So it doesn't look too repetitive in the patterns. Gonna go ahead and do a layer mask, paint that all black, and then just paint in the bubbles underneath. And like I said, I definitely want to blur these because these would be much closer to camera. So since that front water line is so blurred, these bubbles would not be that far from that amount of blur. So let's do filter, blur, Gaussian blur.
The chat was all over the place with that one too.
Was it? Okay, that looks about right to me. So we have like the sharper bubbles further away, which is closer to the tentacle. And then, hello, yep. And then we have the softer bubbles closer to camera. So that gives, again, more like depth and environment, which is what we're going for if we're going to do something realistic. I'm going to add a few more bubbles, and it's going to be like right around the edge of the tentacle because that's where the most like movement and action would be happening. So if you think of like a picture of someone doing a dive, you know, like a deep diver or something, they have a trail of bubbles behind them because that's where all the movement is happening from. So I am going to put like a big concentration of bubbles, lower the size, obviously, like right around the edge of the tentacle, because that's essentially where the tentacle is like stirring up all of the air in the water. Yes. Switch it down to screen. I think probably lowering the size even more. And it's okay for me to leave these pretty sharp because this would be like right around the tentacle, and the tentacle itself is pretty sharp as well. Yeah. Might have those angled a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, I like that placement. I think that's pretty good. And then I would just, I hold Alt to copy and drag it over and do the same sort of thing. I definitely don't want it to just look like copy and paste though. So let me look to see like pattern wise with the bubbles. I might just, you know, mirror image it. That's a quick way to be able to use the same image, but not have it be a immediate cue off to the human eye that like, oh wait, I see that elsewhere in the image. And then also I could just go into the actual smart file and kind of adjust it a little bit. So maybe pull some bubbles over here.
That's a good way to do it.
Yeah. I used the healing tool instead of this clone stamp tool, and we started getting fuzzy stuff. Yeah, so just mixing up the pattern a little bit, just so it's not a quick recognition of the human eye of like, wait, that was elsewhere in the photo. I know it was because I just saw it over there. So totally. Mixing.
Just a heads up, we get about 15 minutes left.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we will save that real quick. And then close out. And then it should be reflected over here. Okay, looking good. So we're definitely going to have to finish up some of these details tomorrow, which is fine because the second image that we were going to do tomorrow should be taking way less time. Cool. So perfect. Okay. I mean, I like the bubbles so far. I might want to put a few bubbles in front of this area. I don't know. I might play around with that. Let's see. Let's do a copy of that layer and pull it like in front of the tentacle parts. I wonder what it would look like if I just kind of rotated it on its side and then clone stamped out some of it. Or not clone stamped out, layer masked out. Just so we have a few more action bubbles around there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's looking pretty good. Okay, I want to address this front water line a little bit now that we've gotten some more environment detail going on. Let's paint in a little bit more opacity to some of it. So in my head right now, I'm trying to figure out, like, realistically, if this was the line, how much of this would I be seeing? Would I be seeing all of this? And how much would I actually see some of the tentacle through this? I feel like I would. I feel like I would see like some flashes of tentacle through the light. It wouldn't just be like one block. This also feels just I don't know, a tad thick to me. Maybe I don't even need that like bottom highlight. I don't know. Do I want the bubbles? Yeah, I kind of like the bubbles there. Yeah, so the thing that is definitely, to me, it feels like I would see the tentacle at least a little bit through there. Because just like we did, let me disable the layer mask. Because just like we covered up the pink, there's some of the pink dress shining through there of the model that's behind. That same thing would be happening a little bit with the tentacle. Like I might see some of the peach coming through a little bit. So, but it wouldn't really be in focus either. It would mainly just be like picking up some of the color, I think, because this is just so blurred. So let me play around here. Let me grab some like peach. I just don't know where I would want. I feel like I would want the peach to be like, let me use the smudge tool and kind of blur it in some.
That's a good way to do it.
There are some times in my composites where it's painterly. Like I'm not pulling just a photo from it. I don't like this much. Let's do like the warp. So it might not be an exact photo. It's just me painting. Which actually I did double major in photography and painting. So it is kind of nice to be able to pull a little bit of that in there. And there are some artists that I follow that are heavily into the painting aspect of their composites.
Yes.
And it's a totally different look and very, very cool. So I'm not opposed to just having a little bit of digital paint going on in there. Let me lower the opacity a little bit.
Yeah, that looks great.
Yeah. And then if I did maybe like one or two more squiggles around there. We do one here, then edit, transform, warp. And I'm just trying to kind of like recreate this ripple effect that's happening where I just want to pick up a teeny bit of the color. That might be a little bit too sharp, but I can blur that here in a second.
Yeah.
Because of my favorite tool, the smudge tool, which I think is criminally underrated. I think the smudge tool should just be praised.
I think it's great. I think it gets used a lot for like the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And that's why people say don't use it. But when used correctly, it's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. Okay, looking too bright to me. And also I don't like how far over it kind of stretches. So I'm just going to layer mask.
What are some of the other artists you follow, the painterly ones?
Does anyone else in the room follow her? Her name is Nina, and I always want to say Simone, but that's a singer. It's like Nina. She does like really surreal, like mermaidy. She's done mermaid stuff, but she does like really surreal painting / photo composites. If anyone in the chat knows her, please call it out because I completely am blanking on her. Nina Y. It's like Nina Y something. She's super cool. Like her work has a really cool, it's sharp in some areas and then very soft in others. So yeah. See, if I turn those two off, it starts to look like it's just slapped on there. If I turn these two layers on, it's such a small little difference, but it does bring some of the color into it. I might want to do one more like overall and just lower the opacity and see what that looks like.
Yeah, that's cool. I like it brings some of the color and it makes it look more.
Yeah, it's like you can kind of see through it and it's just setting it into the environment a little bit more as well.
Definitely.
Cool. All right. I'm going to, if we have enough time, just work on doing like the shadow and lighting for one of these chapsticks and then we'll pick up from there tomorrow.
That's perfect. Yeah, we got like 5 minutes or so and then we'll say our goodbyes.
Cool. And then we will finish this up tomorrow.
Nice.
All right, where is this guy? I think he's here. Yes, he is. All right. So, oh, this is the one that I even said that later on we're going to need to address because it's kind of the product is disappearing. It's blending into the background. So create a clipping mask. I'm going to grab from another area of the chapstick and then I'm just going to paint and then I'm going to set that to darken. Well, it's only going to grab the lighter areas and then I'm just going to lower the opacity a little bit until it feels like I can see the edge, but it's not completely, overbearing the highlight that would naturally be there.
That's cool. And that's a benefit of using the pen tool to get such a nice selection is you can just do that later.
Absolutely. Which actually I see a tiny, I like getting down to the actual pixels. I see this tiny itty bitty little sliver that is going to mess up my composite if I don't take care of that. Nice.
A lot of the times I'll use a clipping mask to take care of those too.
I mean, I could even just go back into the smart object itself.
Oh, look at that. Look at you.
Yeah. And I'm just gonna, because I know we say to keep the pixels, but for this one, I know I'm not gonna need those tiny little blue pixels. And again, I have that photo if later on I need it. So I am just going to clone stamp directly on there, save, and go back. And ta-da, all done. Get that edge back out. Cool.
Good way to do it.
Okay, so edges. I don't want the edge to be this soft, obviously, because looking at the focal sharpness of the actual chapstick itself, it's a little bit sharper than what the octopus is, which I can always go in and give a little bit of a blur. This is where the advertiser in me is like, no. The artist in me is like, yeah, it needs to be just as soft as the thing next to it. But when it's the product itself, it's okay. It's okay if that thing is unrealistically a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit sharper than what it normally would be, because it's the product. That's what we're doing. That's the whole purpose here, is the advertising aspect of it. Definitely. But this edge definitely does need to be a little bit sharper. Okay. Keep smacking my microphone. Sorry if that's loud on the other end.
No, you're good.
Okay, so shadow wise, looking at the shadow on the chapstick, that's going to be reflected on, like, it's going to be the same thing on the tentacle. So the shadow is coming kind of from the middle and left of the chapstick. So a couple different ways I could do that. I could either just do like a blank layer directly under that chapstick, which I've done before in order to like group the entire thing. So like, let me paint in a shadow here. And then switch that down to like probably multiply, and then I can adjust the opacity a little bit. This way, instead of me doing it directly on the tentacle, I have it in this group. So it's the entire chapstick, which for me, organizational wise, I kind of like having the shadows attached to the thing that is causing the shadow, unless there's a specific reason why I really have to, you know, have it attached to the tentacle, which I might run into, but okay, definitely don't want the shadow falling on that guy. And also, the shadow would be a teeny bit less, just in like a small sliver right here, because if you look on the chapstick, it gets dark and then it gets light again. So the light that's hitting the bottom of the chapstick would also be like smacking against the tentacle. So I actually remember, Aaron, a video that you did a way long time ago when you were talking about learning light, and you had this like white statue of a bird and you held it up next to your arm to show that, like, look at the white light, it's reflecting on my arm. So things bounce against each other. So the light from the tentacle and the color from the tentacle would be bouncing against the chapstick and vice versa. So within that shadow, I'm going to do just like a little notching out, and then bring the shadow back in right against the edge. And then that is probably going to be too bright. So I'm going to go back in with my white, do the whole thing, and then I'm just going to do a fade. So I'm just going to fade what I just did until it looks about right to me.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it.
Yeah. So essentially we're going to be doing a lot more, and I think that guy's a little bit too. Yeah, we're going to be doing more reflections and stuff over here, but I know we're running out of time. So tomorrow we're going to pick up where we left off with the chapsticks, making them sit like in the suckers. Realistically, I'm going to reshoot this drip, so we actually have a good looking drip to work with tomorrow. Yeah, and just do some cleanup finishing touches before we move on to the second image.
This is fantastic. This has been absolutely fun. Katelin, thank you so much for everything today. I'm amazed at what you were able to accomplish in such a short period of time. Loving this image so far. And thank you everyone who's joined today's broadcast, either on Behance or YouTube. Be sure to check out tomorrow. We've got more great compositing with Katelin coming up for you. And I do want to make sure you guys remember, tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Pacific, we have part 2. And also be sure to stick around for the Daily Creative Challenge. Join Shantanu Sharma for a graphic design live stream and learn how to create brand and packaging for fictional juice company. That's going to be next. Thank you so much to everyone for joining our stream, and we can't wait to see you tomorrow. Bye, everyone.
Bye.